all set up? Cool. Thank you for the introduction. Said I'm Drew. I run strategy for a lot of the different brands at AOL, specifically within mobile. As mentioned, TechCrunch, Engadget. And I think it's going to be a little bit of a spin from what we've been hearing about so far today, where we've been talking a lot about journalism. I'm going to focus more on the distribution and the products that get that that media into the hands of our users. Let me preface this by saying, one, I apologize. I think I'm a little bit underdressed today. This is one of my only 2 trips to Midtown throughout the year, so I'm really excited. Thanks for having me up here. I will also say I think there might be 1 or 2 typos in this, so if you find them, take a picture of them, tweet them to me. Maybe I'll get you like an AOL T-shirt or something like that. One of the other things I do want to say really quick is that I also run our experimental lab at AOL, and we've recently launched 2 applications. One of them is called PIP, which is a simple messaging application. It's going to work really well on the watch when it comes out on Friday, so if you want to download it, that'd be great. So we don't have a ton of time, and maybe we'll have some time for questions at the end. But I wanted to speak briefly about the ongoing battle between mobile apps and mobile web. Why is this important? A lot of companies talk about how they're looking at things from a mobile-first standpoint. I think that's an antiquated concept. I think if you're not eating, breathing, sleeping mobile right now, you're behind the times and you're going to die out. Mobile is the focus of everyone at this point. And as we think about that, we need to think about what within the mobile ecosystem we really need to think about and how we want to approach it. What we need to do and what we do at AOL is think about where our users are in mobile, how do we optimize and create the best products for our consumers, at the same time optimizing ROI. The question that we get a lot at AOL is, should we be spending time on mobile application? Should we be spending time on mobile web? What's the value of a brand like TechCrunch having a great mobile application as opposed to distributing our content on mobile web? So that's something we need to think about. And we have limited cycles in terms of resources that we can spend on these things. So there's always going to be a question of how we spend those cycles. That was the intro. So I don't know if a lot of you have seen this before. This is a chart that Flurry puts out once a year. And I can say that this particular chart and number freaks people out every single year when it comes out. And what this is it's the time spent in apps versus time spent in mobile browsers. Let me caveat by saying really quickly that you can take it with a small grain of salt. Flurry's business is about mobile app analytics. They don't really care much about your mobile web strategy. They want you to build apps. So we'll think about that, but it doesn't lessen the power of the numbers that they're putting out there and the impact within the industry when people see this. When you look at these numbers, it's pretty clear. 86% of time spent within mobile was within applications, and only 14% of time is spent in mobile browsers. That's pretty damning, and it's a very daunting number when you look at it from a media standpoint. With some of our media brands, it makes you think that we only have 14% to play around with, because look at all of this other thing that people are doing. And we know that users have limited amount of time. We've hit kind of a max in the amount of time that users are spending on their mobile devices, at least kind of our target audiences. If you wanted to target a younger audience, the 12 to 14-year-olds, that's where you're getting a lot of value in creating newer products like Snapchat and Instagram and being their kind of social networks. But with a lot of our target audience, especially with media brands being advertising based, we need to hit these users, and we need to figure out where we fit within this chart. So just to go a little bit further into it, this is the year-over-year number. And as you can see, it's trending toward the death of the mobile browser, technically. So 6% year-over-year growth in time spent in mobile applications. This would lead you to believe that the mobile browsers are going to die out at some point. I don't think that's true, but this is what you would tend to believe. As Flurry put it in their report, it's an app world the web's just living in it. It seems pretty clear, right? We need to be going out and building apps. That's the only thing that we need to, that we're going to be able to go out and really succeed. And I don't think that's not true. The dangerous thing I think that happens when numbers like this come out is that we overestimate the value of them and we don't think about what they mean to us. One of the things that I always tell my team is that analytics are super important, but you need to dig deep into what they mean specifically for you and for your business to really understand them. They can't always be taken at face value, which is a trap that we always get in. Every single year when this comes out, I get executives coming into my office and saying, why are we spending time on our responsive sites? Why are we spending time on mobile web? Mobile app is where it is. That's where everything needs to be. But the truth is that our mobile apps are so much smaller than our mobile web reach. I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. You know, to really understand what these numbers mean, I think it's important to do a little bit of a deep dive into it. And this is a deep dive, as much of a deep dive as we can do in 5 minutes. Let's look at one thing. Games are 32%. If you're not building games, you can take that number completely out. It doesn't make any sense. Games are really important. It's a great media platform. If you're not doing games, don't bother doing games. It's a really hard category to get into. As someone that worked in the games industry for a significant amount of time, I know it's a hit-driven business and it's really tough to crack. If you want to get your media into games, I would suggest trying to hit into one of the games that's already a success. You know, if you want to get into Candy Crush or Clash of Clans, do that. The second point, Facebook, Twitter, and mobile web. When you combine all of those, we're talking about 30.5% of time spent. That's a lot. When you look at that, what's happening, and I'll talk about this even a little bit more, are that Facebook, Twitter, and mobile web, even as we've been talking about this morning so far, are mobile media consumption platforms more than anything else. The timeline is about BuzzFeed articles and HuffPost articles. It's more than, I hardly see any pictures of my friends' babies nowadays, which there's still a lot. But you know, it's really about the distribution of that content. And so the question is, that we're going to talk about is how much time spent within these applications is actually being spent within web views on your content. The other thing is social messaging has grown to 9.5% of time spent. What's really interesting is if you look at platforms like Kik, Tango, and most recently Facebook Messenger, they are turning themselves into media consumption platforms. There's obviously value in messaging, but the way that they are increasing the time spent on their applications is by becoming platforms to bring content into them. And of course, when you look at applications like Flipboard, Pulse, first typo of the day, Pulse. So they're simply media consumption platforms. They don't exist without the content that we're creating, that we're sending in, and they're very powerful for us. A couple questions that I think are important to go over. One is, do we know how much time is spent within web views and apps like Facebook and Twitter? We don't. It's a black box. Facebook and Twitter don't want to give us those numbers. But what we do know, and what we've experienced within our platforms, specifically TechCrunch, Engadget, Huffington Post, is that Facebook and Twitter and social in general is the largest driver of traffic to our sites now. It's surpassed search, which I think is a really powerful thought to have. This is what's driving people into our sites. And if you kind of take that to its logical conclusion, that means people are spending most of their time not within the native experience of Facebook or Twitter, but within the content that we're creating. Is that is that anything I need to worry about? Good to know. So that leads me into the second question, which is there a difference between a mobile browser and a mobile web view within an existing mobile app? I would say no. The question is, if you were to think about Safari and Chrome as just additional mobile browsers, then it's all the same. It just means that Facebook is the new mobile browser, or Twitter is the mobile browser. The only thing you need to think about is what your content looks within those browsers and how you optimize what you need to get out of that. So if your goal is to increase 1 page view to 2 page views, or to increase time spent, think about what that content looks like within Facebook or within Twitter. You know, the old school model of kind of testing on the web was that you would need to see what your content looked like in IE6 and IE7, and hopefully I'm not dating myself with this stuff. You know, Chrome wasn't even something to think about, or like Firefox. This is the new browser in mobile. This is how you need to think about what your content looks like and how it's being distributed. Now, let me caveat that a little bit by saying that a mobile app user is worth significantly more when you look at engagement. You know, anecdotally from an AOL standpoint and across all of our brands, HuffPost, Engadget, TechCrunch, you know, we're seeing probably on an average visit 10 page views per user per visit versus hopefully 2 within mobile web. So obviously the engagement is significantly higher within the app world. That being said, the size of your audience is enormous when you look at the mobile web standpoint. We're talking about an app that might have 1 million active users a month and is getting 10 million actives within their mobile web experience. One thing that we've looked at is, okay, if we get a lot of traffic within mobile apps and we get a lot of value, should we tunnel those users into our applications? And what we've seen is that the barrier to entry for those users is significantly high. And the trade-off that we get for trying to get them into our mobile applications is not worth the loss of getting people into mobile web. 3 minutes, sweet. So I'm just going to wrap up really quick. I think the biggest thing to think about, and everyone needs to define success separately for your companies and what you're trying to do. But the question is, where is the biggest growth potential for you when it comes from mobile? Is it within apps or within mobile web? And that is completely dependent on how you're defining success and what the product is that you're creating. What we are doing at AOL, which I think is the smartest way to look at it for a media brand, is you create a completely diversified strategy. We see the value of getting our content into Snapchat, into Facebook, into Twitter, and it's just as important as how much time we spent within our apps, because that's where the audience is. The one thing I never want to do is try to pull the audience to me. I want to push my content out to where the audience is. So I think diversified strategy is usually the best way to go. In conclusion, is the battle over? No, it's definitely not. The truth is we're actually fighting different wars, and you need to figure out the battlefield that is best for you and is going to put you in a situation to win. So don't let analytics and things that say apps are winning skew you in any way. Look at the analytics, figure out where you need to be to succeed, how you need to distribute your content, and focus on that, and that's how you're going to win. So I think that's it. So, thanks.
No, let's do a question.
Sure, yeah.
Hi, I'm Jake. So thank you for being here.
No problem.
So as you may have already known, yesterday was the mobile gathering or
Yes.
Google's change of
Mm-hmm.
Actually, in line with that, they launched notification capability from the Chrome browser in Android devices. In your opinion, is it going to change the landscape of mobile web, app versus mobile web again?
I don't think it's going to change it significantly. I think what actually is going to be a bigger switch is the Facebook releases today, where they're going to be trying to focus more content into your friends' feeds as opposed to the pages that you like. That could have a detrimental effect on us as media brands. Mobilegeddon, I think it's overly, it's got a great name. People talk about it. We've not seen any concern about it, and the truth is that it's a good point that if your pages are not optimized for mobile and don't render well in mobile, you probably deserve to not be, high in those ranks anyway. So we're not too worried about it. I don't think it's going to have a big effect, but the Facebook stuff I would be much more worried about.